Welcome to the Florida Bar Podcast, where we highlight the latest trends in law office and legal practice management to help you run your firm. Brought to you by the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Center. You're listening to Legal Talk Network.
Hello and welcome to the Florida Bar Podcast, recorded from the 2019 Florida Bar Convention in Boca Raton, Florida. This is Laurence Colletti, and I'm the host for today's show, stepping in for the regular host, Christine Bilbrey and Carla Eckhart. So hopefully I will do well in their stead. So joining me now as a special guest, I have the brand new Florida Bar president. I have the one, the only, the real John Stewart. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. Glad to be back.
How are you doing? I mean, this is kind of a change. I feel like we've been watching this unveil over the years. It's been sort of a slow motion movement towards this moment. So how are you taking it all in?
It has been slow motion towards this movement. We tend to move glacially in the world of bar associations. It's a lot of fun. I came to the conclusion, having been involved with the bar for so long, that the only way I could get out is if I became president, because once you're done being president, they get rid of you. So it was the only obvious exit strategy. So one more year, and then I'll be moving on.
Well, let's talk about that. I know you've been volunteering a lot of your time, and obviously, we travel around with some of your friends, Renee Thompson, and I'm going to forget some names, we've got Liz McCausland and Barbara Leach, some of your pals, and, everybody seems to put in they invest a lot of time in the organization, the Florida Bar, and it's a lot of years, and so obviously nights, weekends, lots of travel time, but, let's, for the benefit of our listeners, tell us about your path getting here. I mean, obviously a lot of different sections, groups, as you've climbed up through the ranks.
Well, I would say my path was a little bit atypical. When I graduated from law school, which I guess now I'm supposed to date myself, 1997, I was from a small circuit, 19 Circuit's pretty small, part of Florida, small city in Vero Beach where I grew up and practice and still practice. And there were no young lawyers sections within any of the local bar associations because the population just wasn't really big enough to embrace that yet. So I actually saw an ad in the Florida Bar News for the Young Lawyers Division Board of Governors, which was the state board representing my circuit, which was the 19th. And so I really didn't know anything about it except for what I read in the Florida Bar News and said, well, it sounds kind of fun. So I put my name in the ring, ran a contested election, ended up winning. Went on the Young Lawyers Board in 1999 with no aspirations of what would happen or what it would be like. And so 6 years later, I ended up being president of the Young Lawyers Division. So that was really fascinating. And, I think what happens is you like the work, but you love the people. I mean, that's really what drives it. And the people were fantastic, so I stuck around. And then I was happy to ride off into the sunset. I accomplished truthfully more than I'd ever envisioned, since I really wasn't even sure what the board was when I started. And as it happened, while I was president of the Young Lawyers Division, the 19th Circuit rep on the Board of Governors, we call the Young Lawyers Division here in Florida the YLD, so I affectionately call the Board of Governors the OLD. So the OLD rep was a guy I liked who I never would have run against, and I really wasn't thinking about doing it. I was happy to be done with the YLD presidency, but I was actually, during my presidency, he decided not to run for re-election, and some people suggested that I should run, and I apparently listened to them and ran another contested race and ended up going straight from the YLD to the OLD, to the Board of Governors, again, with no thought about becoming president, zero. But after a while, I mean, you put in your time and you start hearing your name in conversation, and you decide, well, maybe I can do this. So definitely not your typical path. I think most people come up, as you pointed out, through sections. We have great sections, 26 sections of the Florida Bar, I think it is now.
And how many members right now?
We have, I think we're just slightly over 107,000.
Oh, wow.
It's a big group. So so I think my path was a little bit different, but everyone finds their path, and it's obviously worked out for me, and it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it, truthfully.
Well, just a quick follow-up before we move on to some of your objectives upcoming this year. The contested versus not contested. We travel around, we meet a lot of different bar associations and sections and whatnot. That seems to be fairly unique to Florida, the contested versus non-contested.
Well, for the seats on the Board of Governors, I would say they tend to be more contested, generally speaking. But for to become president, it's a weird dynamic. You have just sort of an ebb and flow. I would say we've had more contested races, it feels like, in the last 5 years than we'd had maybe in the 10 years before. And I don't know why that is. It just people maybe sort of are bunched together by experience and age, and so they just sort of can't sort themselves out. It's a long process because you become, you get your name in the conversation, and then you run and you become, president-elect designate for a few months before the annual meeting, and then you're president-elect, and then you're president. So really, by the time you're in that mix of election to the time that you're leaving, when you're done your year's presidency, there's almost a 5-year window, certainly 4 years. And so, people just sort of jockey, and you can't wait too long or you just get flushed out the back.
So obviously you've had some time to kind of absorb and learn as you go and meet everybody that you know, and you've seen a bunch of great ideas and seen the evolution of the bar over the time. And so obviously, you're the president now. You've got to have some projects and programs in mind. So why don't we talk about your agenda?
I'm really very fortunate in that during my time on the board, I was asked in late 2012 to chair the technology study that the Florida Bar did called Vision 2016 to kind of look at the changing landscape and the legal marketplace as it related to technology. And a lot of people ask me why I was chosen to do that, and I'm convinced it was because I was the youngest person on the board at the time, not because I had any particularly technological skills. But that really changed my entire outlook, in the profession, because I really knew very little about how technology was impacting us, and so just learned a lot. I mean, part of being successful involves luck, and so definitely that was lucky for me to be able to do that, and so that's definitely shaped some of my priorities. I would say that if I have to pick a number one priority, it's surrounding assuring that we manage these technological changes, and particularly as it relates to these alternative or online legal service providers. My main focus is to assure that the citizens of Florida are getting the legal help that they need. It's not only going to be from lawyers. I think lawyers are understanding that now and need to recognize that. But that's fine because, frankly, there's more than just lawyers can do. But we are the regulatory body that's designed to protect the public in the legal marketplace, and we've traditionally done that in the way of managing and disciplining lawyers, but now that legal marketplace is dramatically larger. I mean, it includes all these ancillary and alternative legal service providers, and so I really have a vision to find a way to bring them under the umbrella and find a way to include them in some modest regulatory processes so that we do our job, which is to really protect the public and to manage the provision of legal services, which is more than just lawyers.
So, Florida was, if my memory is correct, I think the first bar to pass a requirement for a certain level of tech competency. That was a very exciting development, and it seems a lot of other bars have followed suit with that. So I think your emphasis on the technological seems to be in line with the history of the Florida Bar here. Yeah, we were the first. We did it in 2016, if you can believe it. The Supreme Court order came out approving it in 2016. Actually, only one other bar in the country, to my knowledge, has done it to date. North Carolina, I think, is the only other one. I think they all think it's a good idea, but no one's really implemented it. We did a lot in that arena. We've continued to try and build. Our member benefits program is really fantastic. It's not something we talk about a lot, but Legal Talk Network is a great member benefit of ours, and we have a lot, and we really pushed member benefits in the areas of technology just to help our members just learn what's out there. I mean, of course, they get a little price break, but the important thing is learn what's out there, see what can help you in your practice. We have tons of them. I'm not going to start naming them because I'll get in trouble and leave one out. I am going to name one, though, because it just happened, which is a Ross Intelligence, which is really exciting because that is, sort of a very cutting-edge legal research platform using artificial intelligence. And I think we're the first bar in the country to launch Ross as a member benefit and continuing in sort of that tradition. I think it's great for their platform, but it's fantastic for our members as well. Access to justice, and obviously very important around the country, different bar associations focusing on making sure that people are getting their day in the court, receiving the justice they need. So, John, what are your objectives for the access to justice arena?
Well, luckily we have a very strong voice from our Supreme Court in pushing access to justice. They have an Access to Justice Commission. And I think that the technology piece plays a very strong hand in that. And so the two certainly relate. We're working in that arena to find a way to pilot programs. The biggest challenge that a bar association like ours has, particularly with our regulatory responsibilities, is that with all that we regulate, it's hard to try new ideas without changing rules. And changing rules is an arduous process. And so we've been having lots of good conversations with our Supreme Court about pilot projects whereby maybe, under discrete circumstances for discrete periods of time, the court would allow us to waive a provision of a rule or two to allow certain types of activities to take place that don't currently take place. The idea would be to improve access to justice. And the trade-off would be we would collect data. I mean, lawyers are notoriously bad at collecting data, and so that would be the idea. It'd be transparent, be data collection, and we'd be able to say in 6 months or 12 months or 18 months if that rule was serving its intended purpose. If it is, great, then we keep it. If it's not, then we have a fair argument to say, well, do we get rid of it? Do we just modify it? And I think that's a way better process than just changing a rule. I mean, we change it now based upon, good discussion and intelligent, cogent arguments, but really not based on data. So, that's a work in progress. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm optimistic that sometime during this year we'll be able to launch a pilot program that will sort of build the inertia for that idea to go forward.
There's internal momentum for more diversity and inclusion in the legal profession in general. And although there's this internal mechanism, this internal desire to do it, the legal profession still lags behind. I think that's fair to say, in all the studies that I've read, that's fair to say that the legal profession there's more work that can be done. So obviously it's your year up at bat here. What type of diversity inclusion programs do you envision?
Well, first I will say that I was very pleased that as a bar president, you get to make a lot of appointments to committees, and the Florida Bar, we're very lucky that a lot of lawyers are interested in being on committees. So one of the things I joke about is that the first two acts that you do, coming in as being president, is you send a letter to every single one of your members asking for them to pay their annual fees. And the second thing you do is you make appointments. The problem with that is, it's about 3-to-1 appointments that you can. The applicants to appointment. So I send out twice as many rejection letters. So that's the first two actions you take. You say, please pay your fees. No, by the way, there's no room for you on a committee. So I always found that interesting. But what I was really proud about and that we worked extremely hard on, it's the only data point we have as far as diversity that is reported, which is gender. And I appointed it was almost exactly 50% men and women, which is great for us because right now the bar population in Florida is about 38% women. So it was a big uptick in terms of that differential. And I think more importantly, 50% of my appointments to leadership positions in committees, meaning either chair or vice chairs, were women. So not just getting on the committees, but actually serving leadership roles. So I think those are the kind of things you have to do because the success really comes from within. There's only so much you can do as a leader except put people in the right places. And and listen, we've been trying to do this for years, so this is not novel to me, but we're certainly continuing it. We pay a lot of attention to it, and I think we're slowly making progress.
So attorneys work hard. They often sacrifice their own personal happiness and time off to help their clients. And obviously, since most of the profession is either working in a small firm or solo, some of their spare time is spent on their businesses. And so it does not leave a lot of time for self-reflection or taking care of oneself. But that's become a problem in the industry. Wellness has been a typical category that's been overlooked, but seems to be coming up around the country. People are advocating, say, hey, look, you guys work hard, you take better care of yourselves. So John, how about wellness?
Well, there's two things I'm going to say about wellness to start out. And they are puppy pit and goat yoga.
So the goat yoga, I saw that over the paperwork over there. Now, is that, explain to me, is that yoga for goats or is that yoga with goats?
That's definitely yoga with goats. So we have a very active and entertaining animal law section of the Florida Bar. So last year, our annual convention, they brought us the puppy pit, which is just fantastic. So they bring in puppies from shelters, and you can I mean, you can play with them just to relieve stress if you want, right? But the idea is to get them adopted. And actually, they got quite a few adopted at our annual convention last year. Puppy Pit is back again this year, so that's kind of fun. But the animal law section, it wasn't enough for them. So they had to branch out into goat yoga, which...
They had to up the ante.
They had to up the ante. So I'm not an expert. I've never actually done it myself, but I've seen the pictures, and apparently, and they're little baby goats. I mean, they're not much bigger than the puppies, and apparently they walk on you, and I don't know. All joking aside, I mean, those will be fun things, but, I would say that about 2 years ago, we really started the mental health and wellness push here in Florida. And it's something that I don't think we realized at the time how much traction it would get or how important it was. I mean, we knew it was an issue, but I don't think we realized how much of an issue it was, and also how much our members would embrace it. I mean, we've added member benefit programs in that area. We actually have had for decades a great program in Florida called the Florida Lawyers Assistance, which is any lawyer, judge, or law student can reach out to Florida Lawyers Assistance and get free mental health counseling, abuse counseling if they have problems with drugs or alcohol. I mean, all kinds of areas. So that's been out there. But I think just the broader context of finding time for yourself, as you pointed out, moments of reflection, whatever it is that you need to do to take time away. And I don't mean to be a broken record, but to me, these things all kind of loop back to technology, right? Because while technology is great because I can be out of the office and still get work done, I can also never untether. I can never disconnect. I mean, we talk about it a lot, and I joke about it a lot, but it's true. People say, well, just leave your cell phone at home and go away for a couple of days. That would stress me out more than hearing my phone going off at 3 o'clock in the morning and having to answer an email. So I need apparently some mental health and wellness and some balance, but it's a big challenge. Dory Foster Morales, who is coming in as my president-elect, she was really promoting mental health and wellness for lawyers before it was cool. I mean, well before we started really seriously adopting it 2 years ago. And I know she's going to probably be the person I lean on the most to keep pushing that. So I would say Florida Bar is going to be very strong on that in the next couple of years.
So go do some goat yoga and watch out. Goats eat everything, so watch out for that mat.
Right, exactly.
So I have one more question for you. It's personal. Can I ask you a personal question?
You can.
So obviously, we keep tabs on you because you're a friend of ours at the network, and so I've been watching your travel and trails as you've gone around the state of Florida. And so I noticed that there seems to be a lot of your Twitter feed and other people sharing of your tweets related to socks. So can you explain to me what's going on with all these socks?
I can explain it, I guess, but I can't really understand it. Now, I will say this: people are just, I think, really nice and gracious. It's the backstory to me is funnier than the actual story. But, I have, I think most people would say, a very casual demeanor. Particularly for someone in my position, I tend to be more casual. I like to be a little bit humorous, a little bit more relaxing or relaxed, and so for almost my entire time on the Board of Governors, we have a full day of meetings on Thursdays, committee meetings, and I would wear dress slacks and a dress shirt, but I'd always wear flip-flops every single time. And so when I got to the position of president-elect designate, some of the more, I'll say, staid members of our profession, suggested that it was time for me to start wearing socks and shoes all the time, And so of course, I recognized that maybe there was some wisdom in that, so I did. However, I didn't really have a lot in the way of socks, and we've talked a lot about technology already. We've seen each other at a lot of technology conferences, and so I don't know why this is. Maybe you can explain it, but apparently the swag at technology conferences is socks. So I had these collection of socks from these technology conferences that I've gone to, and they're crazy socks, right? They're very different and dynamic. So I started wearing those, and then somehow, I don't know what prompted it. I took a picture of it, I tweeted it out, and they put it on Instagram, and somehow that caught people's attention. And so literally, every speaking engagement I go to, someone has a pair of socks for me, which is really super sweet, and that's why you like the people, right? They appreciate it. I will say this, there was a time where they used to give me Tito's vodka, which is always one of my specialties. So I'm not sure about the transition. Maybe it's a maturity level for me now.
There's a song in there, Tito's and flip-flops.
Right, but it's really been fun. I think one of the most fun parts for me is that the membership has really embraced me in this sense. I mean, they don't know me. I'm no better than any other bar president, but we have very few from small jurisdictions. But a lot of our lawyers, of course, are in small jurisdictions. And so whether they know me or not, they feel some natural connection in some way. And so it's just been really a lot of fun to go around and enjoy that.
I'm going to put you on the spot. What socks you wearing today?
I actually have my member benefit Clio socks on today. So if you have any pull and you can see if you can get me into their San Diego conference this October, let me know, because I don't think I've registered yet.
We'll talk to Jack. So I was looking out for you, John. So I have a confession to make. I am also wearing conference socks, but I wore the Legal Fuel socks because, you guys have a podcast with us. So I felt I would feel remiss in my duties as a producer of the Legal Talk Network if I didn't at least go to bat for you guys on this one.
Well, if we're gonna talk about this, we should probably add that the Florida Bar has finally come into my pleading over the years into the modern era. So the Florida Bar has a swag site, so that we can increase our non-dues revenue, and so the Legal Fuel socks will be available for sale on that website. So we have quite a collection of Florida Bar products out there. So it'll be fun.
Excellent. Well, it looks like we've reached the end of our program. I want to thank the new president of the Florida Bar, John Stewart, for joining us today. The real John Stewart. Congratulations, sir.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk to you guys, and hopefully you will be one of the few people that talks to me after June 2020 when I'm no longer president.
I think we will. So just real quick, if our listeners, they want to follow up with you, they want to ask you some questions, how can they find you?
Well, the easiest way, one, I love Twitter. I really do love Twitter. If they want to find me on Twitter, it's THE_John Stewart. THE is capital, although I don't know that matters. And by the way, that's not ego-driven, but someone had taken my name before I could get it on Twitter, so I had to use the _John Stewart.
This is the other John Stewart?
The other John Stewart, who's not actually on Twitter. And by the way, he's been making a lot of news lately, so I've been getting a lot of tweets that are clearly directed for him. So, and I know we've already wrapped up, but he and I went to the same college. Not at the same time. He and I went to the same college, and his name is not really John Stewart. So, that's a whole other podcast. We could go into this, but we're going to try and get him to the annual meeting next year for my swearing out. And also, you can find me by email. Probably the easiest way is jstewart, JSTEWART at rosswayswan.com.
Let's plug your firm. I mean, they're saints for letting you do all of this. So let's plug your firm.
Yeah, Rossway Swan, and we have offices in Vero Beach and Melbourne. Really cover the gamut in the civil practice area. They have been great. It takes a lot of people to help you do this because you donate a lot of your time, and time is how most lawyers make money. So appreciate you mentioning that.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of the Florida Bar Podcast. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or best yet, your favorite podcasting app. I'm Laurence Colletti. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Bar Podcast, brought to you by the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Center and produced by the broadcast professionals at Legal Talk Network. If you'd like more information about today's show, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com, subscribe via iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and RSS. Find the Florida Bar, Legal Fuel, the Florida Bar's Practice Resource Center, and Legal Talk Network on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Or download the free app from Legal Talk Network in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.